Here are 10 nutrition things that runners should know, but probably don't. Because I'm sure you've had one of those moments where someone explains something to you and you think, oh, whoa, I've been doing it wrong for years. The problem is, the longer those small mistakes or beliefs hang around, the more ingrained they become and the harder they are to shake. So in this video, I'm going to walk you through 10 nutrition tweaks that consistently give runners that light bulb moment. And the best part, they are simple to fix. Now, most runners don't do these things because they're lazy or undisciplined. It's simply because they don't know about them. But if you're a runner watching this, it means you're already someone who wants to improve. So you're about to narrow that gap. Hi, I'm James, a registered sport nutritionist on the Sport and Exercise Nutrition Registry Board. And over the last 6 years, I've coached over 1,000 runners to achieving their goals. But you're about to get the shortcut because we're going to be going through some of the common blind spots I see, and understanding them now is only going to help your performance long term. And where it matters, I'm going to reference the science because this isn't opinion-based advice. Let's get into it. Number 1 is rebound hypoglycemia. So a rebound hypoglycemia. What is rebound hypoglycemia? So here I've got my graph. This is time and this is our blood glucose. So let's say we eat something that's fairly quick releasing carbohydrate because you've watched an influencer online and they say, you must eat before your exercise. So you've done that, you've followed that advice. You've eaten something and then that carbohydrate has come into your system here. Now, depending on the time, how long it takes you to actually eat, then get out the door, you might experience a different run. So let me explain. Now, if you wait half an hour, 45 minutes here, depending on the type of carbohydrate that you've eaten, so let's say it's something light, you've had a couple of slices of toast or a bowl of cereal and out the door, not much fat, not much fiber in there, it's going to come into your system fairly quickly, 10, 15 minutes. Your body's then going to deal with that, release insulin, and actually bring you down. Now, there's evidence to support if you're starting exercise here, so you start your run at about 45 minutes after you've eaten that, and you're starting as your blood glucose is coming down, it's going to cause this to drop and actually come low. This means, or how it feels, you start running and you, I feel a bit low, I feel a bit tired. And it takes you another few minutes, 5, 10 minutes, 20 minutes to actually even out and get back into a good state. Your body will do this without even feeding. Your body's very clever. But if you want to avoid this rebound hypo and have a feeling of good energy from the start, we want to change the timing of when you eat and when you run. If you eat at the same time, but instead of waiting 45 minutes, you wait 15. So you go fairly soon after. You're going to start exercise as your blood glucose is coming up. That means you're going to have good energy from the off. Alternatively, instead of waiting 45, we wait longer. We wait an hour and 15, for example, over here. That means we've gone up, come down, balanced, then we start. Have a play with your timing and it might just make you feel better in that first bit of your run. So the paper that I'm referencing that looks at all of this is by Jeukendrup AE Killer, and I'll put all of the science in the caption of this video. So if you're interested in reading the papers and getting into it, you can find all that information down there. But what's maybe even more interesting about this is that those researchers were thinking, do we need to make this change with our athletes? Will it actually impact performance? So they did some more tests, and what they found is that, interestingly, didn't actually affect performance. So it is more just how you feel. So don't panic if this happens on race day and you think, I feel a bit flat. You can push through. It's not necessarily going to affect your times. But if you're just getting into running and you're feeling like, I don't actually want to feel like that, it could still be something to play with. Number 2 is we need to stress our gut more in training than we do on race day. Now, this is a nutrition issue that most people get back to front. Normally we go through training having the bare minimum of fueling with carbs during. We just have a little bit just to get us through. And then on race day, we think, oh God, we're going to be pushing harder for longer. I need to have more carbohydrate that you have per hour during your run itself is going to put more stress on the gut. So a fundamental habit that I really preach and teach with my clients is getting their gut used to an increasing amount of carbohydrate in training. Now, this isn't to say that we want to have every single run or every single training session performed high carb, but we want to maybe pick 1 or maybe 2 sessions a week, depending on how much you're training, and use that as a way to train your gut. So to think about how much you want to have on race day in terms of grams of carbohydrate per hour. Potentially it's 60 grams per hour. If you're doing a marathon, it might even be more, 70, 80. We want to work out that number, and then in training, we're trying to build up to that gradually. So another way of stressing your gut isn't just by increasing the amount of carbs by having more gels. We can also stress your gut with more fat and more fiber in the food that you're eating. So the bottom line there is having a bit more whole food, because that's going to be harder to digest. So in training, when you're doing your long runs, instead of thinking, oh, I'll just have a couple of gels to get me round, it's only 2 hours, I want you to think, right, 2 hours, I'm going to be aiming for 60 grams per hour in my marathon. Therefore, if I'm running for 2 hours, I need to be eating 120 grams of carbohydrate. If you only have 2 gels for a 2-hour run at the moment, and you look at the gel packs and you see that they're 30 and 30, so you're having 60, maybe don't double it, maybe just take a step towards that. So in that way, we're going to train your gut to get used to having a little bit more. Then the following week, go with a little bit more, and we slowly get you up to that number. Now, stressing your gut, we can actually have more in training than we do on race day. That's another way of really stressing your gut, because if you are able to tolerate 70, 80 grams of carbohydrate per hour on the same sort of intensity and duration in training, and then on race day, you can back off a little bit, where naturally you're a bit more nervous, you're a bit excited, which isn't great for your gut because it's going to be stressing it there. By backing off, we reduce our risk of having GI trouble. So stress your gut more in training. If you're interested in reading more about the effects of gut training, then I'll put the paper by Martinez et al. 2023 in the notes. Number 3 is ultra-processed foods can have their place in a runner's diet. Now, this isn't just me saying, oh, we need to have balance, eat some foods that you like. No, there's actually some sport nutrition evidence to support that some ultra-processed foods might even be helpful. Let me explain why. Now, if you've ever read the Chris Van Tolken Ultra-Processed People book, it might put you off ultra-processed food. It certainly reduced my intake of ultra-processed food. I should quickly define my terms. Ultra-processed food means food that has undergone a lot of processing. It normally contains a lot of preservatives and added ingredients, and it's normally quite low in fiber and easy to eat and overeat. Now, if you've also watched some of my other videos, you'll know I'm quite keen on telling people to refuel after exercise, because there is a sport nutrition best practice of having 1 to 1.2 grams per kilogram body weight carbohydrate in the hour after you've finished your run. That's going to help recover your muscle glycogen stores and help with performance in your following session. But if you've ever done a run and you think, I just don't really want to eat after that run, that's because exercise suppresses ghrelin, which is our acute appetite hormone. Now, that's annoying because we've got some good evidence saying, hey, if you can eat there, you're going to perform better, but we've got our body saying, I don't want to eat. So what's the way around this? Well, this is where ultra-processed foods might have their place, because ultra-processed foods are literally designed for us to overeat and actually eat past satiety. So basically eat when we don't really want to. So having something that is low in fiber, that doesn't require that much chewing, that's easy and rapidly digested, normally for general day-to-day health, not ideal. But in this specific situation where you need to try and get some carbohydrates specifically in afterwards, having something that's soft, easy to get down could be really helpful. There's actually a paper that looks at the difference between fast food and sports supplements on recovery. And you wouldn't believe this, but interestingly, they compared like a McDonald's style fast food meal and then a calorie matched, carbohydrate matched amount of food from sports supplements in terms of recovery. And they found they did the exact same thing in terms of rebuilding muscle glycogen stores and performance in their next session. I'll link to the paper, it's by Cramer et al. In the notes. But the bottom line here isn't me saying go out and start smashing McDonald's or Burger King after your sessions. It's saying have some foods that you enjoy, that you can get in to help you eat in that moment after. Something is going to be better than nothing. Now, if you really like toast, some white bread, it doesn't have to be the really fancy sourdough one here. If it's just what you've got in the freezer, come back from your run, you don't really feel like eating, pop a couple of slices in, put some jam on there. Yes, it's going to be quick releasing carbs, it's not going to be very nutrient rich, but it is going to mean that you're rebuilding, you're giving your body signals for recovery. Then what you'll find is that later on in the day, your cravings and your desire for some of those ultra processed foods that may have snuck in anyway have come way down. So not only is this good for recovery and fueling, it actually helps with diet quality and potentially guilt associated with eating those foods later, because we're now doing it intentionally. Between you and I love a hot cross bun. I eat them all year round. Now, I use those as my refuels. I might come in, I can have 2 hot cross buns, bit of butter, bit of jam or honey. I know I'm going to be getting in 60, 70 grams of carbohydrate, maybe even 80 depending on how much jam I put on, and I know that's my carbohydrates ticked. I would do this especially if I'm going to be doing 2 sessions. So if I have a run in the morning, then I'm going to be going and doing a gym session in the afternoon. There's even more importance on actually getting that refuel in. So do that, hit those numbers with some ultra processed foods. Then when your body has unwound from the run, you've moved from your go sympathetic nervous system, which is another reason that you don't want to eat straight after, and you've transitioned back into the parasympathetic, your rest and digest system. You can then have your your proper breakfast. So that might be then going to have my healthy oats with seeds and nuts and really go for high quality in the sort of 2 hours after I've done my immediate refuel. So give that one a go, especially if you train multiple times a day. Number 4 is you only need to take electrolytes during exercise if you're going to be exercising for over 4 hours. And even then, it's going to be dependent on how salty a sweater you are. Now, surely this flies in the face of everything you've been told about hydration, because hey, electrolytes, that's what we need, that's what we've been marketed. But really, that's one part of the puzzle, and there's 4 pieces here. So what we take in is going to be the amount of fluid and the amount of electrolytes. They're the 2 things we need to be cautious of. Then how much we're losing. So in our sweat, there's fluid, or there's water, and there's also sodium. So we need to try and get both of these things right so that we can maintain balance. Whether we want to have electrolytes in the fluid is all about this balance shift. So let's try and understand it. When we're sweating, we're losing fluid. There is sodium in that. That's why our sweat sometimes tastes salty. There's less sodium, less salt in that sweat though, than there is sodium in our blood. So if we're not drinking anything while we're running, our blood is slowly getting saltier. It's that salty blood that our body registers and makes us think, we need to drink some water. So we feel thirsty. We drink water and our blood shifts and we maintain that balance. So if we're sweating, we're not drinking much water, but we're taking a lot of electrolytes, then actually we're making this balance shift the wrong way. We don't want that. So what happens when we're sweating, and again, the more we sweat, we need more time to actually lose sweat, which is why I've said that 4-hour part. And again, this isn't me saying this. This is information from McCubbin et al. I'll reference the paper. When we have time to lose fluid, and there's salt in it, and if we're then only replacing it with water, it suddenly gets to a point where we start diluting ourselves. And that's where the risk of hyponatremia comes. So that's when we might need to start putting electrolytes in. That only really happens after exercise that's lasting 4 hours or over. And then even so, you need to know a bit more about your sweat sodium concentration, and it will be the higher sweat sodium sweaters that will need to have more electrolytes. If all of this has gone a bit too deep for you, don't stress. I have a full video on it if you're interested. I'll put the link to that in the notes on understanding when to use electrolytes. However, the long and short of it is, if you're a recreational runner doing half marathons and under, you don't need to take electrolytes during. They might have a place after to help rehydrate, or you could just add a bit of salt to your food. Number 5 is understanding how much stored energy or fuel we have on our body stored as fat. So I'm going to do a really quick maths equation to help you understand. So if we have a 70 kilogram man, and that man is fairly lean, he's 10% body fat. What that means is we've got 7 kilograms of fat mass. Now, we know that fat contains 9 calories per gram. 7 kilograms is 7,000. So the equation I'm going to do is 9 times 7,000. That equals 63,000 calories of stored energy on us. What does that even mean, James? Let's try and put that into a running number. Well, let's imagine that you're expending 600 calories per hour. Then we have enough stored energy for 105 hours of non-stop running. That's 4 days. That's over 4 days of non-stop running if we were just to go out there without fueling at all. So I hope that answers the question of, do I need to stock up on my fat stores before this marathon? No, we have absolutely ample, even lean individuals. Unless that is, you're going to be doing an exploration to the North Pole or maybe an Atlantic row, in which case having a bit more fat stores is going to be helpful. Just going to take a quick moment to explain that if you are struggling to apply any of this, or it feels like you have a good diet, but maybe it's not quite matched up to the amount of running that you're doing, and you're therefore struggling with energy, or you're not feeling like you're recovering quite well, or you maybe want to just bulletproof your future so that you can keep running long term, and you're not sure that your diet actually supports that goal, then you might want to consider nutrition coaching. The best way to reach out to me is to jump on Instagram. My handle is the same as my YouTube handle, James O. Hudson. Just have a chat, reach out, we'll start a conversation, and we'll find out if nutrition coaching could be of benefit to you. Number 6 is gut comfort will make or break a run. Now, I'm sure you know this already, and you've probably experienced that, something doesn't quite feel right on my run. However, where most runners go wrong is they attribute it to what they're eating during the run. Now, yes, there might be some things at play there. Normally, dehydration increases risk, or having far too much carbohydrate and not having trained your gut gradually, we covered earlier. However, another likely thing that may be causing it, especially if it's lower body body issues is going to be what you've eaten in the 24 hours prior. So let's say you've got your long run on a Saturday or a Sunday. Let's say it's Sunday. What you've eaten Saturday evening is quite likely to still be in your gut Sunday morning, because most people's guts are going to be about 24 hours, maybe 36 if you don't eat much fiber. So what you've eaten, if you've had a load of vegetables at dinner on the Saturday as well, we've got lots of undigested food now in the lower part of your digestive tract. You're now going and doing your run, and there's a lot of bulk there that wants to make an exit. Unfortunately, running, that mechanical jostling of running, combined with less blood flow in the gut, because it's all in your legs helping propel you, causes a recipe for evacuation. So don't just think, oh God, I tried a different gel on this run. It's probably that's made me need to nip into the bushes. Also think about what you've eaten in the 24 hours prior and be critical. Have you had quite fibrous vegetables? Did you have a chili con carne with loads of different beans and kidney beans and things like that in there? Or did you have a massive salad for lunch the meal before? Is there a lot of bulk going through your gut that now doesn't want to be there? The fix to this, if you have experienced that, is taking out some of those high fiber vegetables the 24 hours before, so maybe the lunch and evening meal before. Number 7 is timing matters as much as quantity, particularly with carbohydrates. You know how I referenced earlier that we want to eat in this hour after exercise? There is a lot of importance for that. Even if you think, well, it's not practical for me to try and get something in, I'll wait a bit and I'll still get those carbs in and then I'll be feeling good. Now, there's a paper that I'm going to be referencing that looked at the timing, matched the quantities of carbohydrate, and then looked at performance in the following day's session. Now, the session that I looked at was a HIIT intensity session. So they found that muscle glycogen stores did come up to the same amount by eating the same amount, but with different timings. However, the group that didn't delay, so the group that ate within the hour after, compared with waiting 3 hours and then getting all the carbs in, they actually had better performance in that following session. So this best practice advice of trying to have 1 to 1.2 grams per kilogram body weight carbohydrate in the hour after is going to improve performance. I've also linked to a systematic review that's looking at this, so you can really understand the science if you want to. Number 8 is don't supplement chronically with high doses of antioxidants. You might think, oh, what is that, James? So vitamin C and vitamin E are antioxidants. And there's actually some research that's come out which looked at this supplementation blunting adaptation to endurance performance. Why does that happen? Well, our body actually produces antioxidants. And if we have a large amount coming in called exogenously, so if we eat those antioxidants through supplemental forms and we have a large amount, what that does is it down-regulates the amount of antioxidants our body naturally produces. We don't want to do that. So if you're someone who just is hooked on a Berocca and you have those Beroccas with vitamin C in every day, I would advise against that, but I'd also extrapolate this information and think about other antioxidant-rich products. So if you are someone who likes to take Cherry Active before bed, I would avoid against doing that chronically. Now, Cherry Active is a great product, I do recommend it, but during periods of intense overload or maybe even competition times when we just need to freshen people up. So doing it periodically instead of chronically is the way forward with antioxidants. Number 9 is micronutrients, and more is not better. This is something I see people get wrong all the time. It's supplementing with a certain micronutrient or a multivitamin and with the intention of just getting more in. Now, micronutrients often act as enzymes or cofactors in all of the metabolic reactions that are going on in your body all the time. So as you sit there now, there's thousands of reactions going on every second. Now, we want the enzymes and cofactors to be able to regulate those properly. If we have more of those than we need, those reactions might get turned up or turned down in a way that's not going to be helpful for our metabolic health. So the bottom line of this one is, instead of supplementing, especially if we don't know that we need that supplement, sure, if you've done a bloods panel and you know that you're low in certain micronutrient, take that and bring yourself up. However, if you don't have an understanding of your blood panel, then my best piece of advice would be to eat a wide range of different micronutrient-rich foods, namely fruit, veg, different types of meats, different types of whole grains, nuts and seeds, and herbs. If we can get a wide range of those coming in, our micronutrient needs will be fixed. Why? Because when those micronutrients are packaged in the food matrix of food, they'll get digested further down in our gut. So our body will be able to take out what it needs instead of being thrown a huge amount more and ultimately potentially having too much. Now, this last tip is designed to help with your longevity within running and helping you have a positive relationship with the food that you eat. It is your nutrition vocabulary matters. So what do I mean by that? Well, firstly, I want to explain how or why I really dislike the word or term cheat meals, because that implies that you're doing something unsustainable that you don't necessarily enjoy and you therefore have to cheat on it to have the pleasure. Whereas if we can reframe, if we can think that some of those cheat meals that we sometimes enjoy, if we can just embrace them as part of our diet, then we don't have the guilt associated with having them. That's going to be a much more positive approach and relationship with food. Also, I would advise you to try not to polarize food. So instead of using terminology such as that's a good food and that's a bad food, maybe we say things like that's a tasty food, that's a more hyperpalatable food, or that's a more nutritious food, that's a less nutritious food. Because that means then we can still eat some less nutritious food. Fine, it's about the balance. But we don't think, oh, I've eaten a load of bad food, therefore I feel bad because I've done it and I experience guilt because of that. So really try and think critically about the terminology you use with the food in your diet and the impact that that has. If you think I've missed any obvious nutrition things that runners should know but probably don't, please put them in the comments. Let's create a discussion. Also, if you enjoyed this video, consider liking and subscribing and maybe looking back through some of my previous content. There's lots of information there on nutrition for runners.